for all. To that end, be present with us this day and guide our new president, our leaders, ourselves to be people of honor and integrity, involved in living a life of service above self. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and think of the words that we are saying. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America,
to the republic for which it
stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all. Excellent. Thanks again, John, for a very thoughtful and moving prayer. That was very powerful. Let me gather myself here a minute. Does anyone have any announcements? Please unmute yourself and make your announcements.
Hey, thank you, Ranjit. I hope everybody can hear me. I have to kind of lean into things here. I just wanted to thank everybody who participated at Second Harvest this week. We've got another event at NC Medicist for tomorrow. We've got 5 people signed up. It'd be great if we had a 6th person, but we've got 5, and we've got what will probably be our last event at Second Harvest coming up next Wednesday, and we've got a full crew for that. So I thank everybody for signing up. I also wanted to let everybody know that I was contacted by Jessica Pearson, who I met through Charmec Responds, but she's actually with a group called 4CLT. It's a faith-based group that has identified an opportunity for us to support the frontline workers at Bojangles who are administering the vaccine. What they need are 40 sandwiches per day over the next few months. I've taken the liberty of signing us up as a club for February the 2nd, I believe it is. Mm-hmm. And all they're looking for is 40 bag lunches, 40 sandwiches, 40 pieces of fruit, 40 desserts that we can drop off. Different groups are signing up. So I signed us up for one day only. If there's more interest in participating as a club, we can make that happen. It's a good cause. So if anybody is interested in helping, please let me know. I've signed up my neighborhood. We've signed up for 3 days already. Our community here is going to get involved, but it's a good cause. We need to support the healthcare workers who are administering the vaccine at Bojangles. It's an easy lift. So let me know if you're interested.
I am. I'm a bit of a chef, so I'm excited about the opportunity.
Great.
But I'm a little more gourmet. I'll be a little more gourmet sandwich.
I'm sure they won't object to that because I'm kind of a bologna guy.
Excellent.
Full of bologna, Kevin Kendrick. Full of bologna is
full of bologna. Yes, that too. That too. Among other things, Kelly.
Excellent. Any other announcements?
I do. I actually have one kind of piggybacking off of what Kevin was saying.
Sure.
Taylor and I, in terms of an update on Feed the Body, Feed the Mind project that this club and is granting us a district grant for, there might actually be additional opportunities with Second Harvest. We are in talks with them right now to approve doing book distributions during their school mobile pantry. So they basically are out of school every single day, Monday through, I think, Thursday or Monday through Friday. And there might be some opportunities to go in and actually prep the boxes prior to putting them on the truck that day. It's like kind of a day of event. So once we actually get approved to serve this program, we will identify the dates and the schools where we're going to do a book distribution, piggybacking off of their food distribution. And then Jenny, maybe we can get on the calendar and schedule some times. So if people are not comfortable actually coming and helping us distribute books, which we don't really need that many people to do, it would be a 5 to 6 p.m. For the book distribution, but there will be an opportunity potentially to help pack the food for that specific event earlier in the day. So I'll get you guys all that information when we get the program approved and get a little bit more detail. But just wanted to give you a heads up that it's hopefully coming, and we're making good progress with the Feed the Body, Feed the Mind program or project.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Thank you. That's great news. That's great news. We've had a couple more people join us. Michael, welcome. Rosemary, welcome. Patricia, welcome. Remus, welcome. And Frank has got his phone to work. Welcome, Frank. Frank gets
Yay.
vaccinated on Monday. So excellent. Now I was going to do a quick share
I've got one.
Sorry, go ahead.
I
sorry.
was on the Sedgefield community meeting on Friday, and although most of their students are attending school pretty well, they have about 5% who have only attended 30 days out of the last 90 days. So they are trying to do a raffle, and the kids, if they miss less than 2 unexcused absences for the month of February, there's going to be prizes. The top prize will be a bicycle and a helmet. The middle prize they're not sure of yet, and then the third prize will be headphones. So they need community assistance in buying those items. I do have that in the newsletter. Once they are setting up an Amazon wish list, and once that is on board, I can send that out to anybody who might want to. They will also take gift cards or checks. So just be aware of that if you'd like to give.
Excellent. No, that sounds like an excellent program to get school attendance up. We're excited to be involved with that. And we can talk to Dilworth Charities if we need to get some money out of our charity. Does anyone else have any announcements at this point? Excellent. Okay, I'll go ahead and I'll share the screen. We have a wonderful Dilworthian this month, as we do every week. And I wanted to take a quick second to recognize Jenny's hard work. And here we have some excellent quotes. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? That's from Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King Day is coming up soon. Very appropriate. Those who are happiest are those who do the most for others. Booker T. Washington. Here are the various opportunities to sign up. And then a little bit about our excellent speaker today. Bag lunches, a little bit about that. What Jenny just talked about at Sedgefield. A really interesting take from Mark West, who was a speaker at Rotary. And here are some pictures of all our great volunteers for Medicist and for Second Harvest on January 13th. Appreciate everybody's hard work. And so take some time. There's some commercials at the end. Great updates on all our members. And Rosemary, John Barringer, Dave Miller, Kay May, David Hodgkins, Charlie Seaman, Harding Shen. Harding Shen's going to be 100. We're going to do 100 acts of service for Harding's 100th birthday. So be looking for that, and just all the way down the list. So please take your time, look over everybody's updates. Really exciting. A lot of exciting news here for us. Joy's getting a new kitchen. Angie is having pizza parties for her kids. So lots of great news here. You won't find it anywhere else. This is the only source of news for Dilworth Rotarians. So if you're going to get your news, you got to get it at the Dilworthian. With that, let us do health and happiness. Is anyone happy? Happy dollar, sorry. If anyone's happy, please unmute yourself and make a donation and tell us what you're happy about. All right, Kevin.
Yes, thanks, Ranjit. I am happy that Jenny's okay. We had a quick visit to the ophthalmologist this morning because she was experiencing some of the same symptoms that she had with her eye. So we made an emergency appointment with our neighbor who lives next door, but we had to drive 45 minutes to see him. But she's okay. She'll probably experience some bleeding. Hello?
Yeah, I think Dave Miller, you accidentally are screen sharing. So if you would, there we go. Okay, sorry.
But yeah, Jenny's gonna probably have to get shots in both eyes. We'll know more when she goes back for her third shot in a couple of weeks. So
Excellent.
I'm happy for that. And also happy to see Barbara Hortzman on the call. Barbara, good to see you.
Excellent. I am happy that we have a great speaker today. I'm happy that a number of our members, Frank is getting his vaccine on Monday, Rhett is getting it on the 20th, and Bob Teague has already had it. And I'm sure there's others among you who are keeping quiet but have had your vaccine or getting it. So excited for all of us to get vaccinated and to come out of this thing on the other end.
John is
Anyone
also
else?
getting his on Monday.
Okay, sorry. Excellent. Dave Miller's coming back in. I think he inadvertently left the room.
And,
There
and
he
Dave,
Excellent.
Dave Miller had his vaccine also.
Okay, David, go ahead. Dave, go ahead and unmute yourself. Okay. All right. Excellent. Anyone else? Okay, with that, we are going to turn this over to Kelly, and Kelly is going to be introducing our speaker. So Eric, if you would unmute Kelly. Excellent.
Hey, everybody.
All right.
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Yes.
Okay. So I would like to introduce, I've not gotten the pleasure of meeting him, but I will read his bio. It's a very interesting one. Mr. Jerrod Brown, who was born and raised in Southern California by two public school teachers who encouraged him to integrate and value integrity, social consciousness, environmental awareness, inclusivity, and the importance of education in its varied forms. His early adult life was spent wandering North America in a self-modified 1940 Ford Gypsy truck, which I am very, very jealous about. I'll have to ask you later what color it was. Kind of, did you make it nice and beautiful? I want one as well. So he has a deep interest in mentoring, teaching hand skills, exotic automobiles, men's group work, ethnobotany. So I had to look this up, guys. So I'm going to read you the definition because I know you're all going, what the heck is ethnobotany? And if you're not, I'm very impressed with you. So it is the study of a region's plants and their practical uses through the traditional knowledge of a local culture and people. So maybe he'll tell us a little bit more about that later. Origami, metal sculpture, firekeeping, storytelling, and creative private and public art. He enjoys an 18-year marriage to Justine, who shares her teaching skills and mentors him in his current and third career as a public high school auto shop teacher and mentor. So far, his greatest calling and joy has been fathering a bright young man named Jaden. His commitment to fully fathering him, coupled with his own adolescent misadventures, led him toward the important work of helping young men step into manhood informed by the mature masculine, surrounded by soulful men and with intention. So everyone, please welcome Jerrod Brown.
Hello, good morning. Yeah, Ranji wanted me to talk to you today, and he wanted me to talk about something that I feel very drawn to and called to, so I was honored to accept. And I also share a common mission in making a difference. So Rotary's been on my radar for many years as an organization whose mandate is to make a difference. And that's all anyone really wants to do in this world is make a difference. So I'm glad to tell you a little bit and share my path with you. Hopefully we won't be interrupted. I'm in my classroom, but the school's kind of empty. We'll see. So I grew up in Southern California. I was lucky. I had two loving parents. They were educators. It was a great place to grow up in the 60s. And they did okay raising me, but they missed something. There was an important piece that they left out, and it wasn't their fault. Our culture has little to offer when it comes to a coming of age or some kind of a recognition when a young person becomes an adult. If you happen to get raised in the Jewish tradition, you get a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah, and that has all of the elements of a ritual, of a rite of passage. That has everything you need to be honored by elders and taught an importance that you're actually transitioning from a boy to a man or a girl to a woman. If you're in the Boy Scouts and you make Eagle Scout, that is a wonderful way to acknowledge a young person's transition. You are seen by elders as having accomplished something. You're taught the value of community service, but These rituals are all we have in our culture. If you're not Jewish and you don't have you don't make eagle, there really isn't anything that delineates that passage. And so my buddies and I, we found some older guys that were willing to initiate us. They were a few years older, and we idolized them. And they came up with rites of passage for us, but the problem was they were outlaws. The things that they wanted us to do and that we had to do to prove we were men were dangerous, were illegal, were painful. But we would have done anything to be seen as men, and I know what I was looking for. I know what I needed. I needed an older person to see me, to recognize that I was no longer a boy. I had a real profound interest in anything mechanical. I took apart my parents' vacuum cleaner. It had a mystery to me. There was a cord that you could pull out 20 feet. How did it go back in by itself? I needed to find out. I took the cover off, and this spring that was 20 feet long wrapped all around me and scared me. And I tried to put it back in. My father and I both tried. We ended up taking it to a vacuum cleaner repair, and this lovely man with a smile and a laugh showed me how to wind it back up. Instead of castigating me for destroying a piece of equipment, it turned into a learning opportunity, and I had a little taste of what mentorship might be. My passion for machines grew, and in high school I bought an old truck, a 1940 pickup truck. It was a Ford, and it needed everything, and it was so rusty my mom made a joke about girls needing a tetanus shot if they were going to ride with me in that truck. I spent 5 years learning how to fix up that truck, and I did all aspects of it myself, but there was a mentor that spent time with me rebuilding an engine. And there was a mentor at the auto parts store who took the time to explain things. He had an old truck he was rebuilding. I found a guy who did upholstery work who taught me how to use the sewing machine instead of charging me to do my interior, showed me how to do it myself. And finally, a carpenter who helped me to build a house on the back of the truck and do my own cabinet work inside. These were all people that were willing to help a young person. And they actually turned out, some of these guys later, this was in the 70s, some of these guys turned out to be some of Southern California's best hot rod builders that are known today. When that old truck was finished, I had a big party. I said goodbye to all my friends and my family, and a bulldog named Jackson and I took off. And this turned into a 7.5-year odyssey. We wandered North America from Canada, coast to coast, Mexico, all through the United States. The story of that journey is for another time. The story, what I want to bring to you guys is the story of the mentors that I found in each place. Every town I got a different trade. Every trade, there was somebody willing to teach me, somebody willing to share their craft, their knowledge with me. If they weren't, I moved on. But every town was a different trade. So by the time 7.5 years had gone by, I had done all of the hand skills trades in construction, residential, commercial. I had done all aspects of auto repair and restoration from the ground up, paint and body, everything. I'd learned many other skills that weren't related to work, to mechanics. But by the time I arrived in Charlotte, it was in the 80s, mid 80s. I ran across a rather eccentric guy out near the airport who had a shop with exotic cars. His name was Larry Jenkins, and he became a powerful mentor of mine. He encouraged me, and he found somebody in me that could fix cars really well and speak to people really well. And I ended up becoming the manager of his shop, and he called me his partner. During that time, I discovered men's work. To most of us, men's work is done with your hands, but in this case, we're referring to an inner work that men can do. to improve themselves, to look inward. And I joined a men's group in Charlotte that's now 30 years old, maybe a little more. These men formed their focus was on sharing group wisdom. It was a collective mentorship. And I grew so much from being a part of this group that I ended up facilitating the birth of 7 other men's groups in Charlotte that are all operating today. Basically emotionally healthy guys that gather like you do to help share their insights, their joys, their fears, their concerns. Most of what I'm telling you today refers to men and men's work and boys and coming of age of young men. But I want to say that these concepts are universal with females as well. But for some reason, through all of millennia, men have initiated young men into manhood and women have initiated young women into womanhood. And I don't claim to understand how to initiate a young girl, but I know a lot about myself and my struggles growing up. But I know that these concepts are universal. I discovered poets and storytellers, Robert Bly and Michael Meade, and they introduced me to the concept of a wound that young men carry, the wound that they get when they're separated from their fathers in this culture. In cultures of the past, a young man's rite of passage was to go to work with his father, and today the father disappears somewhere and does his work and returns, and the young man is left at home. Or the mother goes and disappears and the young man stays home with his father. The average father spends 5 minutes a day with his children, with his children. And Robert Bly and Michael Meade believed that the very root of all the issues we're having with anger and violence in our youth and in our news daily comes from this wound. There's a sadness when there's a separation of young men from their fathers right at the point when they need them the most. There's an importance of initiation in a young man's life to be seen by older men and to be informed of what the mature masculine has. I went on to start my own company when the partnership with Jenkins didn't work out, and I started Automotive International of Charlotte. It grew to be 15 employees, and we worked on the most beautiful cars, Rolls, Bentley, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Maserati. I found that dealership trained mechanics didn't fix cars the way I wanted to, and I hired young men right out of high school. And I taught them how to fix cars. Our shop became a place not only fixing cars, but we were philosophers, and we discussed the world, and we discussed things that had nothing to do with cars. And we found ourselves mentoring my business partner, Jean. I met him in Quebec, and we worked with these young men. 2 of them are the finest Ferrari technicians in this city, and 2 of them work on Rolls Royce and Bentleys, and they're still doing fine. Somehow I felt lesser than other members of my family because everyone had a master's degree but me. I was carrying this concept of blue collar, white collar in my head. Our culture makes blue collar lower than white collar somehow. And yet all of the chairs you're sitting in and the buildings you're in and the things around you, the wires through the walls were all put in by craftsmen. When the doctor crashes or when his car breaks down, he calls a mechanic to come help him, and the plumber that comes to your house charges you $150 before he even does anything. There's a shift that's happening in our culture that's starting to honor the hand skills a little bit more. We stopped shop classes in our country for almost 20 years. There was this concept that everybody's going to college, and now we have a critical shortage of young people willing and wanting to work with their hands, encouraged to work with their hands. I used to be embarrassed by the roughness of my hands and how hard it was to get the grease out from my fingernails if I had a date with a girl at had some class. There's a writer named Matthew Crawford. He wrote a book called Shop Class as Soulcraft. And in his book, he talks about his career as in a think tank, making six figures and moving around numbers on spreadsheets. He was so unfulfilled and he quit and he opened a motorcycle repair shop, losing money the first year, but what got filled was his spirit. Working with his hands brought him great joy. And I learned from this book that my outer work with my hands and my inner work that I'm working with the men's groups were really the same thing. Becoming a father really brought it home to me. And in '96, I became a father and I threw myself into it fully. And as my son matured, I started thinking about what might I do to signify his rite of passage. My men's group couldn't help me. None of them had been initiated. None of them had offered a rite of passage for their sons, some of whom were struggling to get traction as men. My search for some kind of ritual, I studied all these different cultures. Most of the things I read from the history of man would get me arrested for child abuse. But I discovered a small organization that's off the radar that's in Charlotte, and it's called the Joshua Project, and it's headed by a man, or it was headed by a man named Philip Lloyd Pearson. He's an MSW and he specializes in working with men and young men and teens at risk. He was single-handedly running this program and going in the woods 4 times a year with a group of young men and other men to try and show and model for young men how mature men deal with conflict and bringing in spiritual practices from all different cultures. He worked with the wounds that men carry, and I found myself, I went to one of his retreats and this was me, and I started going to all of his retreats, and I've helped to form a board of directors for him, and last year with 8 on the board, we established a 501c3 for him. My son went through this program, which lasted a year, culminated in a solo with himself in the woods for many hours. I watched him become a man and walk out of the woods taller, informed, and ready to step into manhood in its fullness. It really filled my spirit cup to work with these young men and be there and honor them in their passage and know that they didn't have to find an initiation through gangs or through people that weren't informed. In 2015, I was sitting on a rock at our property in the mountains asking what's next for me. Be careful what you ask for. A man that had retired early came into my company with a real beautifully restored 68 Camaro, and he liked my company enough to make me an offer on it and facilitated an early retirement for me. It was hard to let go of my company and the young men that I had trained, but this man was able to put a couple million more dollars into my company and take it to the next level. So there I was. I had the ability to work on art projects. I have some pieces uptown I was working on, and I was basically retired, and I got a tap on my shoulder. And it was a headhunter from CMS. It seems that the auto shop teacher at North Mech was retiring, and they needed somebody to fill in for about a year. I had no interest in dealing with a bunch of teenagers. I was allergic to authority, bureaucracy, and red tape. And yet I was curious. So I went to the high school And I spoke with the old auto shop teacher, and while I was talking to him, some students came in to ask him questions, and he shooed them away. He didn't answer their questions. He shamed them for having to ask. And then I went in the office for a conference, and there was 10 administrators sitting around a desk, and it looked like a job interview. And I said, "Is this a job interview? I'm not applying for the job." And they said, "Well, just sit down. Let's talk. Do you know what happens when you go for a job interview for a job you don't want?" So I agreed to a year. It's now 6 years. And we have our goal of having an eye on guiding the youth. What got me was when they said they were looking for mentors, not teachers. There's a distinction between downloading content into a young person's head and modeling how to live and how to be a person in their fullness to these young people. Somehow we expect our youth to know how to take the mantle from us, to know how to steward our planet, but we don't have time to mentor them. We leave that to other people to do that. There's a calling that people feel to be a teacher or a mentor, and it's a needed calling in our culture. I wasn't showing up for my lunch duty. They sent an administrator to my classroom to find out why, and I had 8 students sitting around my desk. They were asking me questions. None of them had fathers. Half of my students don't have fathers. And I must have father written on my forehead, and they were asking me all these questions that they would ask a father. Every day at lunch, we had these meetings, and they took my name off the roster for the lunch duty. The questions were intriguing. One young man wanted to know what was my best pickup lines so I could get a girl to kiss him. And another young man wanted to know where on campus would be a good place to be private with his girl. I had to be careful of the advice I gave him. So there's a man box that we're supposed to fit in, and our culture has taught us that men can't accept defeat or blame or show vulnerability. We're taught to that rage, that violence, those are preferable to empathy and love. The man who doesn't show his feelings is the one who's the bravest and the strongest. And as we force our young men into these man boxes, the result you'll see climbing on the Capitol. So I stand sometimes in front of my class and I look at the faces of those 14 to 7-year-olds, and they're hungering for my stories. With my journey, my travels, and my life experience, I can teach by telling stories. But when I'm talking to them, what I'm hearing is not from me. It seems to be coming through me. It seems to be from my ancestors and from my parents and from all the mentors that have come before me. So I appreciate a chance to share this path with you. I wanted to show you a couple of pictures if I can. I don't know can you see this? No, maybe not. Let's see.
Right. Go ahead and put share screen, and then it'll share your screen, but you'll have to pick out the screen you want to share.
Okay, I got it. Here we go. This first picture is my gypsy truck.
Oh, wow.
I purchased it at age 15, and I spent 5 years working on it. It has 8 kinds of wood in the camper with stained glass windows. And I left California August 79 in this old truck. I still have it today. It runs and drives beautifully. I teach with it because when I got it, I was 15, didn't have any money, and didn't know anything about cars. And my students are 15, they don't have any money, and they don't know anything about cars. So it's a tangible example of what you can do if you set your heart to it. This is a picture of a gathering at the Joshua Project. And I think there might have been 25 or 30 guys, all different religions, all different ethnic backgrounds, all different social economic status. Our eldest in this picture is 82 and our youngest was 13. 4 times a year, this group goes into the woods with these young men, and we draw from all different cultures to create some kind of meaningful rite of passage for these young men, to where they really feel that they're ushered into manhood in the presence of men who have access to their feelings. This is in my class here at school. In order to raise money for the program, I bought an old Mustang and we fixed it up, and then we did raffle tickets, and we were able to sell 1,000 tickets at $20 each. And we raffled the car last month. The people you see in this picture are now all in the automotive industry, and they're all in jobs, many of whom I found for them. The first project I did was a 54 Chevy truck. And when I sold raffle tickets, Jim Wilkerson from Blackhawk Hardware decided he wanted to buy 30 tickets. He didn't want the truck. He wanted to support my program. He's a friend of mine and an exceptional person. And if you go to Blackhawk Hardware today, you'll see this truck sitting in front of his shop. But these are the guys that got this truck running, driving, restored it, buffed out the paint, did the brakes, everything on it. And as a reward, they got to ride around the campus in the back of the truck with big grins on their faces. This is a project I'm doing now. It's a 1934 Ford, and this is the day that I brought it to class, and my students have been helping me put it together. The beautiful thing about this program is I get to be with the same students for 4 years. So they get me in 9th grade, 10th, 11th, and 12th. Sometimes both semesters, sometimes one semester. It depends on their level of interest. And this last shot is of a current project that we're working on, which was a vehicle donated by a friend of mine. His father had it for 50 years and the engine failed, and it sat for 50 years, or 40 years. So now it's ending up at my shop. We've disassembled it, and I have all the pieces ready. I just don't have students right now.
Wow.
So that completes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have time.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jerrod. That was very, very interesting. Amazing work, both in mentorship and vocational training. Really proud of you and your journey. If you have any questions, please unmute yourself and we can ask Jerrod whatever questions you have. Kelly, go ahead.
Hey, Jerrod, thanks for sharing that. You're killing me with the cars, though, and this has nothing really to do with it. But I have a second real meaningful question. But like, if someone were to actually have a car that you guys could potentially restore, and they paid for all of the materials, is that something that your class would be interested in doing?
We have done that. The biggest problem with that is how much time it takes. Because to restore a car takes many hours, and I'm getting classes at 20 minutes each, 30 minutes each coming in. They have classroom time and they have shop time. So the yellow truck took 2 years, the Mustang took 3 years. And so a lot of times it takes too long to do a restoration.
What would be the most beneficial thing if people were to donate to you to either support your program? What is the most beneficial thing for you and your program from a donor perspective?
One thing I really, the brass ring is for us to get these young people into the community, into jobs. Job training, practice interviews are a real good thing that are easy for people to do. It takes 15, 20 minutes. A young person comes in and they're doing a practice interview. And it's kind of a trick. It's a trick I've played. It's a little bit of shadow magician energy, because I tell the business owner I asked him if he'll do a practice interview with one of my students. And so he's not feeling like he's letting the student down if he doesn't hire him. Then I tell the student they're doing a practice interview so they're not nervous. They go in for this practice interview and they get hired because this business owner sees a bright young person in front of them that has ambition and drive and motivation. And I only send those young men, those young people. I mostly have young men. I have had 4 young ladies in 6 years.
So I would suggest, like, this group is really great about getting information out to people. So if there are specific requests from business owners, I would say write it up and get it to Jenny, and then the board can figure out like what's the best way to disseminate the information so that you can get, because people can do Zoom interviews at this point. It's probably a good time to even practice interviews. It's something you actually can do. But my second question was, why is there not a trade school that exists in Charlotte? Like, I know there's one in like South Carolina, there's one in the surrounding counties, but there are no actual trade schools here. I don't believe, unless something's happened in the last year.
They closed them down for many years and they auctioned off all the equipment, but they started reopening them. Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools now has 7 auto shops with 9 teachers. They have a wood shop in one of the schools. I think it's Independence. And then Central Piedmont has excellent programs, but they're older by that time. But I would love to see more shop classes. I think the biggest problem is finding instructors, because if you're really good at what you do, you're making money at what you do. And if you're not good at what you do, you really shouldn't be teaching it. And the skill set that you need to be good at your craft and be able to transfer that information to others, and be also to deal with the bureaucracy and the authority and the red tape that involves any kind of school system. So it's rare to find enough people to do that. I would recommend anybody in your radar that's nearing the end of their career to consider, as a capstone on their career, teach for a couple of years and feed back into our community some of your life experience and what your trade is. And it's a needed thing. It's called CTE with CMS. You could Google CTE CMS, and what it is career technical education. And you can jump in there and help, and they would love to have your help.
Is there a trade guild in Charlotte?
A what? I'm sorry?
A trade guild? Like a guild of tradesmen that meet and...
Probably not an official one, but a lot of us know each other. And we could, but yeah, there's a lot of gifted people in this city, a lot of talent here.
Thanks.
I think the main thing is to make sure our young people don't feel ashamed to work with your hands as a trade. Trades people used to be well respected, and somehow trades ended up being second class, and just that conversation would help.
Excellent. Do we have any other questions?
Rhett?
Reggie?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Go with Rhett. That's okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rhett, and then David.
So much, Jerrod. That was wonderful. Jerrod, a long time ago, I read a book called Iron John from Yeah. And this story of mentoring, it's been going on since mankind. I mean, it started with the Odyssey. I remember that and all. My question is this: at some point in a young man's journey, he had to steal the key from under his mother's pillow. She couldn't give it to him. And we talk about the influence of the father. What about the influence of the mother?
Okay.
The key concept.
The key, what was happening was our culture views danger as being something to protect the young man from. The key represents danger. The young man has to take the key from his mother to release the wild man from the cave. Okay, from the cage. The wild man is what our society is afraid of. We don't want our young people to experience any danger. We want to protect them from all of that. So in Iron John, that young man had to steal it. Now, if the mother doesn't offer resistance, if we didn't get any resistance from our own parents, it doesn't work. We have to rebel. There has to be something to rebel against. And that's what the issue was. He has to steal the key. He has to resist his own parents in order to start his process of individuation.
Wow. Well, you did it in a good way.
Yeah, my parents seemed to know how much rope to give me. They gave me enough, but they kept a little tension. They gave me a lot of rope, maybe too much sometimes, but they kept they held on to the end of the rope.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. David, sorry, go ahead, David.
Yeah, mine was not a question as much as a comment, of course, and all of us will share in this, but Jerrod, when you're talking to your good friend Jim Wilkinson, he knows this club very well. We for the last 40 years, we've rang the bells for Salvation Army in front of Blackhawk Hardware. And Jim is a great friend to allow us to do that. He's a friend of some of us personally. I have a machine tool sales business, so I know Jim from, he used to browse around my shop looking for machine tools, but he's a great guy. So if you're talking to Jim, and we see that car every Saturday, Christmas season when we're doing our job. So of course, never knew the heritage of it, but when you see Jim, tell him that you spoke to Charlotte Dilworth South End Rotary Club, and he'll know us very well. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, David. Excellent. Any other questions? Yeah, Barbara, go ahead.
It's not really a question, it's a comment, but I used to be a counselor in the high schools in Charlotte, and then I was a counselor at Central Piedmont for 8 years. And I really support every word that you said, Jerrod, as far as I went into the high schools to speak to those kids about alternatives to college and trying to get them involved in the technical programs, which everything that Central Piedmont offers is excellent in that regard. And people who have spent their whole lives building up those programs so that they are excellent. So I applaud that. And I want to say to you that you brought me to tears in your speech because you're such a beautiful spirit. So I applaud you for the man that you are.
Thank you. That's
Thank
beautiful.
you, Barbara. Thank you, Barbara. Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to think here a second. Yeah, Jerrod, you made a really interesting point. I think I read a statistic that of kids who enter 9th grade, only 20% of them will actually graduate a 4-year college. So we're not preparing the other 80% for what's out there in the world. So, you know, I think that the things that you're doing and more, if the CMS could do more of this. Quanta had a question about computers and things like that. Are there other, obviously hand skills are important, but are there other skills that the high schools are looking at to teach people to find their way in the world if they don't want to go to a college or a trade school?
There's something called soft skills, and there isn't any classes in it, but as mentors, we can't eliminate it. We've got to teach these students that looking somebody in the eye when they speak to them. I used to teach the handshake before COVID, how important that handshake was to most of you guys in these frames. No, you get that firm handshake, you look them in the eye, and now I can't teach that, but not looking at your phone when you're speaking to somebody, or not pulling the phone out, or these are all skills that are so needed. Customer service, what our students are learning, what our young people are learning today is how to text and how to communicate with electronics. But to actually look somebody in the eye and talk to them and have that person and listening as well, listen and talk. So these are skills that all teachers are supposed to be helping along with the content. So yeah, soft skills.
Mm-hmm.
We have another speaker.
Yes,
Yeah, sorry. Sorry. Do we have any other questions or Kevin? Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Quanta, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Um, I really admire you and respect what you're doing. This is wonderful. Young people definitely need it. And with absent father, of course, we all know that there is no person that's fatherless, that fathers are absent sometimes. They don't take their responsibility. One thing that I did want to mention is that, I had period of my life where I was a single mother due to divorce. And I have a son who is not very technically oriented. Like he calls me, I have to fix his computer problems. And all his friends think that it's funny that he's calling his mother to fix his computer. I wonder how much encouragement are the girls given to enter the technology, because you said you only had 6 girls in 6 years. So I was wondering if there should be some women who get into this mentoring, but in technology, and if there's an encouragement from the system for the women to become technological mentors to girl students as well.
I think if we're paying attention, you'll notice that gender is starting to get less and less important in all areas. And gender itself, the definition of it is actually being redefined in our time. So I don't think gender will have as much importance in the future. I started out really wanting more girls in my class because I wanted to show the young men how to be a gentleman to a young lady. I wanted to teach them how to be around girls in a way that you do when you're older, when you can honor their feminine side and put a blanket on them if they're cold or hold a door for them. And so I started out really trying to do that. But what I noticed was the young men didn't ask me questions when a girl was around that they asked me when there weren't any girls there. It turned out to where I found that the need for me to be with just men in this class seemed to be a greater need than it was to have women in the program. But I don't turn them away. I just don't go out and encourage them to join, but I would love to have them. I think one of the top BMW technicians in this city is a woman.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Well,
Excellent. Any other questions? So if you just raise your hand. Well, I'm sure Jerrod will stay on the line for a few more minutes to answer any additional questions, but we want to thank you, Jerrod. This has been a really interesting, informative, and moving presentation. Thank you, and thank you for everything you do as a human being in our community. We're awfully proud of you and of your journey. With that, we will do the 4-way test of the things we think SEO do. If you would unmute yourselves. First, is it the truth?
Truth.
Second,
The fair to all concerned.
third,
be beneficial.
Goodwill and better friendships.
and fourth.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
And finally, will it be
Fun.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, if you want to stay on the line, I'm sure Jerrod will be happy to answer any questions you didn't want to ask in front of the group. Or if you want a man-to-man discussion, I'll be happy to share some information so that Jerrod can talk to you about the other anything else about where to make out on his campus and other things that you may be interested in. But thank you all. The meeting is dismissed. We look forward to having you all back here next Friday. Be safe, and we look forward to having you. And
Thank you.
Jim, just
Thank you, Randy. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
goodbye. Goodbye.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
Thank you.
If you would unmute yourselves, if you have anything. Michael, I know Michael's an Eagle Scout, as was Hap. Romi's father was also, my father-in-law was an Eagle Scout. So go ahead, Hap. You need to unmute yourself. There we go. You're unmuted. Oops.
Yes, I was. I'm really stunned at how, at this presentation, that was just marvelous on many levels. I'm very, very impressed, and it was just out of this world, really. It's an excellent eye opener.
Thank you. Yeah, you made Eagle Scout. Is that what I understand?
Yes, Eagle Scout, Order of the Arrow, all of those things.
That's one of the only things that you can do as a kid
Yeah.
that impresses on a job interview as a grown man.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that. That I was present for a few of those honorings of young men those presentations, and to see the ritual, to see those young men with the hands of the older men on their shoulders, to know how they were taught about the importance of community service. That has every element of a rite of passage. It took years to become Eagle Scout. I wish that was required by all of the young men in our community. It would be a different place.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
interesting. I actually never thought about that. But yeah, that's true. It was some of the initiations were, for example, in the Order of the Arrow, you had to go into the woods at night and stay overnight on your own, and then the next day you couldn't drink, that sort of thing. But it was fun, and it was encouraging, I think.
Hat, do you remember the item you took with you for Order of the Arrow?
The what?
The item you took with you? I was in Order of the Arrow as well. So you get to, Jerrod, you get to take one item with you into the woods for your overnight, and they stop you, and you're walking in the dark, and then they just pull you by your shoulders and direct you off to the side, and then that's your spot. And the key to it, at least for our troop, was that you start to find your other troop mates in the dark. And then I brought the tent, and somebody else brought a sleeping bag. But you weren't allowed a tent, but you should have like a tarp to make a lean-to and what have you, to sort of survive the night. Now, mine was in Florida, so in the middle of the summertime. So the mosquito problem was the most enduring thing that we had to do that evening, for sure. So.
Yeah. For us, it was just take a sleeping bag. The next day, you couldn't drink anything. That was unhealthy, to tell you the truth, because it was hot. Anyway.
Our young men get a sheet of plastic, a journal to write in, and a pencil. They can take a knife if they want, and a jug of water. No food of any kind, because that's what attracts the animals.
Right.
And they have to be all alone. And it's about 36 hours they're by themselves. They've been through hunger. They've been through fear. They've been through the elements. The hardest thing is loneliness, for them to be alone.
Yeah, and also you break that Snapchat chain, or you break that, all those things that are so important in young man's life these days. Excellent. Any other questions, Remus? Any other comments?
No, thank you.
Okay. Rhett, were you an Eagle Scout as well? I think.
No, I'm sorry. Okay. Star.
Okay, sorry. I didn't mean to bring that out. I didn't mean to bring out your star rating.
Remus, the book Iron John is that story. Iron John is an ancient story. Robert Bly just translated it in a different form, but this concept of going into a scary place. The forest was the place where all of the king's knights went in but disappeared. They never came out. And when this young man looking for adventure, well, that was me in my truck. Yeah. I was looking for adventure. And I didn't want stuff that didn't pique all of my experiences. I wanted to go into that forest. And there's a place in that forest that's the scary place. And that's when the hairy arm comes out and grabs his dog and pulls him in the water. And he says, I don't know if you remember what he said. He said, "This must be the place."
Yeah.
Because that was, that's what he was looking for. And that's what our society is so afraid of. That's what we don't want our young men to experience. That's what we shelter them from.
Yeah.
And I think that's a wound.
Yeah. I agree.
Absolutely. No, but I mean, I will say, I've known Jerrod for God, almost 15 or 20 years at this point, and he's a craftsman. So I mean, he's, his workmanship was absolutely amazing, and he's done all kinds of things. I mean, his list of accomplishments every day would make your head spin. I mean, the cars he's fixed, the houses he's built, different things he's attempted. It's been really, he's had a remarkable journey. He's really an amazing human being. So
Thank
excellent.
you.
And now this final chapter, like you said, a capstone on your journey. It's amazing.
I'm not sure about a final chapter. I'm not sure.
Capstone. Yeah, capstone. Yeah.
There might be something left in there after this.
I'm sure there is.
My final chapter will probably be death, and that'll be. I hope I can face it with grace.
I'm sure you will. Excellent. Any other questions? Any other comments?
Well,
I would offer.
Go ahead, Rami. Go ahead, Rami.
To those of you who are here, Jerrod talked about his career and he mentioned the art part of his career very briefly, but he's done some wonderful art that is public in the spaces uptown. And I think my very favorite piece is the what do you call them in front of the Mint Museum, Jerrod, on the ground? What do you call them?
We call them artistic grates.
Grates, the grates.
They're air intake grates.
They're easy to miss if you don't look down, but they're in front of the Mint Museum uptown, and they are very large. And you might just walk on them and not realize, but they are exquisite. They mirror the style of the architecture around that area and of the Mint Museum itself perfectly. They look to me like an Art Deco style. Is that right, Jerrod?
Yeah.
And they're just gorgeous. So if next time you're uptown, look down where you're walking. They're just really beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, the city there's some opportunities to do public art. There's a piece just down that same street where I got to honor my wife and my dog and my son and my favorite people as silhouettes on the wall. I would have done it for free as a vandal, but Tony Skilbick paid me to decorate his parking deck uptown. That was fun.
Yeah, every time I walk past that, it's on the by the Night Theater, right?
Yeah. My intention was to create Artworks Charlotte is the name of a company that I started, and that's what I was going to do with my retirement before this teaching position came along. But I have found that my students can help me. We've created several pieces of art right here in school, and I'm able to teach them welding and fabrication while they build these pieces of art for friends of mine. So that's something, if anybody's interested and wants a piece of art, I'll be happy to talk to you about it. We can build large stuffs, 40, 50 feet long, whatever. It's kind of fun, kinetic pieces. I'm intrigued by it.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much again, Jerrod. That was very, very informative. And I know at some point I'm going to try and get Jaden on here. So I'd love to talk to him about his small-scale solar projects and living off the grid and things like that. I think that's going to be a really interesting talk as well. So I'm going to probably be in touch about that. Red, any last comments or thoughts before we?
No, I'm just really appreciative of this meeting, Ranjit. Thank you for getting Jerrod on here.
Excellent. Thank you all for being here.
You, Jerrod.
Thank you, Jerrod.
Good to see you.
All right, buddy. Take care. Look forward to seeing you soon. Have a great rest of the day. Okay. Bye-bye.